that was the point. The measurement error in our estimates depending on the level of the analysis, and also depending on the topic, because as you know, depending on the edition of the PISA study, you study in depth one topic and you just get a summary profile of the other two topics. So the precision of our estimates is not the same for if you work with 2006 for science as for math or reading, because science was the topic, the main focus of the study. So I think that we have to take into account the measurement error in our estimates depending on the level we are working with and even the topic we are working.
Yeah, that's why it was very important to leave aside in some of the estimation science and to estimate the results using only math and reading. And then you don't use at all the test scores in science. And as I showed you, the results are very similar. So for the fixed effect, it's enough to have more than one observation. There's 2 or 3. In the Israeli data, actually, I have 4 subjects. I have English and reading language, Hebrew in this case, or Arabic, and then math and science. And I could do it all 4, all 3, all 2 in different permutations. So in the case of the PISA, I dropped in some of the analysis science and did only math and reading. Okay? But I take your point. This is an important thing to note. Actually, now that you say, I mean, I should have thought about the possibility of repeating the exercise, limiting the test scores on the grading of some portion of the tests, okay, by different areas, and see how sensitive are the results on pulling everything versus focusing on test scores on some aspects of the test, because we have that information in PISA. Yeah, maybe I should have done that.
Thank you very much for your talk. And I have a question about one controversy that we are having, one among others controversy that we are having here in the Spanish and also in the regional education system. Is about the amount of hours and how the hours are distributed in one day. We have what we call the continuous day, jornada continua, and part-time day. Mm-hmm. So the students that you saw yesterday, they had a part-time day. They had classes from 9 to 1, and then they have 2 hours for break, for have lunch, and they can do some activities there, but not all the students. And then they have from 3 to 5. And some schools, overall supported by the teachers, they want to have a continuous day from 8:30 to 2:30, and then they finish. The students, they finish, they can have lunch later. So in your conclusion, you say that the influence of a governing board on curriculum is not very important, so perhaps it feels like...
In this context.
But, well, I wanted to know what do you think about this?
Thank you. Well, you know, in this paper, the evidence is limited in terms of the questions one can address. But let me mention, in the Israeli data, there was, as I said, there was a funding reform. Okay? So let me highlight a few things from that study that may address some of the concerns that you raised. Some of the schools that had increased in funding increased the length of the school week. So kids have stayed in school more hours, 1 or 2 more hours a day, so extended school day. And some of the schools that lost resources have reduced teaching in some subjects and our exposure. So first of all, what was nice in that paper, and I want to share it with you, is that I could do the analysis focusing on the schools that gain versus schools that did not have any gain, gainers versus no change, and I could do the analysis with those who lost versus no change, and see whether gaining resources is symmetric to losing resources, whether you get the same estimates. So, and there isn't really any evidence on that. I mean, we have evidence on reducing class size. Do we have evidence on increasing class size? Do we have evidence that shows the symmetric effect or non-symmetric effect of increasing classes and reducing classes in the same context? No. And of course not in terms of hours of instruction, length of the school week, etc. So it was shocking to me to find that when you use these two subsamples, and you get really symmetric results. I mean, losing resources would yield, for example, in terms of hours of instructions, 0.06. Gaining resources would yield 0.06. Okay? And the same thing about the length of the school week. Now, another thing that would be relevant for the question you raised is I looked with the Israeli data because we have also student questionnaires. So there was a concern that the length of the school week has an impact on the well-being of students. They're young, primary schools. So I looked at questions like a student is asked, are you happy at school? Are you satisfied in the classroom socially? Are you satisfied in the classroom in terms of learning? And they have to rank from 1 to 6. Okay? Then there are questions about violence. Were you involved this year in violence in school with your students from 1 to 6? Is your classroom violent from 1 to 6? So there are many well-being and social satisfaction questions. And what I found is that increasing the length of the school week did not have any effect on violence and did not have any effect on social well-being of students. Actually, if it had anything, it had positive effect on social well-being. Okay? I mean, social satisfaction from your peers and satisfaction from your school increased, actually. So that was, and no effect on violence. I thought if kids, they're at school until 2:30, now they have to stay until 4, they're tired, they're pissed off, they want to go home, that might impact actually their interaction with their peers. And in that paper, I mean, I'd be happy to send it to you, no effect on violence. So that was something that I was surprised. Now, again, the margin of changes are relatively small. It's not that you add 4 hours a day. You may add on average an hour a day by this reform. Okay? But there are some schools who've added more, because some schools gain a lot. I mean, imagine if the previous funding was based on class. So a class of 20 and a class of 40 would get the same amount of resources. That's ridiculous, but that's how it was. Okay? And the class of 40 is from low SES, and it got the same resources. Now, the reform gives to a class of 40 an addition for 20 students more that they have relative to a class of 20, plus the benefit of getting this extra margin of 30% on low SES. So suddenly a school with the class of 40 from low SES have a lot of resources, and they can have an addition of 5, 6, 7 hours a week to the length of the school week and the school year. Okay? So there are some schools who gain a lot, and I don't find an effect on well-being. It's not directly addressing your question. I mean, we can discuss the possibilities for Spain in terms of the specific context, but this is part of the evidence that I have with the Israeli experiment, which is kind of richer in terms of the question that I could address, and also from the point of view of the student, of the kids.
Okay, thank you so much for the seminar, Professor Lavy, and
Victor.
It was really nice. Okay, Victor. It was really nice for when you coming here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.